guys, hi, how's it going? How y'all doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing my best and worst shade in the palette for my Pat McGrath collection. Y'all know I've been doing these for every collection that I have in my palette collection, and ultimately I like doing it because I like you guys to know what palettes I have, but also what shades I like in each palette and which shades I do not. The ones that I hate to pull for. I don't know. It's kind of fun. We're doing this overhead today because I am kind of running out of time to get it filmed and I have no makeup on. I kind of look like a scrub, but I figure it's going to be funner that way. Anyways, forgive my hand. I am doing the collection and declutter videos, like trying to get on top of those. And because of all the swatching and wiping off of my hand, like my eczema has come out like super strong, and I'm going to try not to swatch on this hand, even though that's my go-to hand. That said, that is what we're doing today. I hope that sounds like something you're interested in. And if it does, please keep on watching. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high and colorful beauty and self-care. Ultimately, this is my self-care. I love coming out here, talking to you guys about all the things coming into my collection, leaving my collection, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I hope that you are here for it. And if you are, I hope that you want to subscribe before you go. Kind of a kick in the pants to hang out with, and I would love to have you along for the ride. And all that now said and done, let's just roll into this video where I'm going to show you the best and worst shade in every single palette in my Pat McGrath collection. There's not many, there's only 10. Let's start with these two first. These are palettes that not very many people remember or know about. I'm finding that everybody's like, oh, what are those? These were $25 way back in the day, and they're just little quints from Pat McGrath. They're called the Eye Ecstasy palettes, and I have Subversive and I have Sublime. So they're just 5 shades from those two palettes. This one is Subversive, and my favorite shade in this palette is this one here. I'm gonna swatch it on my hand. This one here is my favorite because it is a beautiful, like gorgeous, deep burgundy shade. It is the shade Blue Blood from the Subversive palette, and isn't it just pretty? It's like an oxblood shade. It's so pretty. What a beautiful shadow, right? The worst one in this palette for me is just, I mean, simply because of color. It is the one called Gold Standard. It's just too gold for me, in my humble opinion. And I mean, it's pretty if you like a gold, but I'm just not a gold lover. So that would be my best and worst out of that palette. And then this palette is the Eye Ecstasy Sublime palette. So these are just more neutral. These are all shimmers or shimmery shades anyways. So my favorite in this one is this one here, which is called Sinful, because it is a beautiful kind of like greeny, like antique greeny gold color. I mean, that is a beautiful one, right? It's just got enough green to it that even though it's gold, it kind of makes me love it so dang much. And then my least favorite is this one here. It feels awful. It also, like, there's a lot of fallout from that one. This one is in the shade Illicit. It is a brown with some gold, like, sparkles to it, which I can't say it doesn't work well, because it does, but I just feel like it's not as impactful as a lot of her other shimmers. I don't like use it as much. It's just kind of a poopy color. So again, it's just sheerly about the color. You would think it'd be this one because it's kind of like more golden, but that is a really beautiful, like brassy gold. I don't know. I just don't like straight up like yellow gold. This is my Pat McGrath Bijou Brilliance palette. This is a quint from holiday, not this last holiday, but the holiday before. I love this shade here. This is a beautiful, like rosy color. It is in the shade Pale Amethyst, and it is just such a beautiful pale pink. Truly beautiful. It's not like super impactful in your face, but my gosh, it's just so beautiful on an eye look. It's easy to use. It's kind of got a little bit of a creaminess to it. I just feel like it's a beautiful shade. My least favorite is this one. This one is called Noir Nebula, and I think it's just because it's another one of those shades that is a matte with a whole lot of glitter in it. It is a black matte with blue glitters, and it just leaves a mess. It is more black. When it wears away, you can't even tell that it had glitters in it at all. So it is my least favorite in this palette. It works well as a matte in this palette, which is good because the only other matte in this palette is this one here, which is a beautiful matte, but this one works well to like deepen out any outer corner or whatnot. You know that at the end of the day, those blue glitters are not gonna last. So that's how I use that one. This is a quad, the only quad that I have from her, and it is the Blitz Astral Quad in Ritualistic Rose. My favorite shade in this palette is this one here, which is Astral Rose Orchid. It is so pretty, but it is unlike any of the other ones that I have already put on here. It's a little less creamy. It's got more of a grippiness to it, but I find that it doesn't like fall out like some of these ones do over here. So, I mean, it's just truly pretty. You can see it's kind of got a little bit of a dual chromatic nature to it. It is one of those peachy pinks to gold, but it is my favorite peachy pink to gold. My least favorite in this palette is going to be this one here, which is Antique Gold 02. And again, it's just because of the color, but also I just don't feel like it's impactful. It is gold, sure. It's a pretty gold, don't get me wrong. It's a better gold than the first gold, but I just don't think it's as impactful as it could be for like a Pat McGrath shade. When I think Pat McGrath, I just want more from her shadows than what that one is giving me. This is my only holiday palette that I have from Pat McGrath, and it is the first one that she came out with. So it is the one that's called the Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity palette, and I actually quite love this palette so much. It was really hard for me to come here and go, which is the worst and which is the best. I really think that they're all freaking amazing. I really, really love this shade here, which is the shade Dragonfly, because again, it's one of those like duochrome colors. You guys can see it in the monitor. It's like this red to green, like if I could get it to show you guys properly. Red to green, and it's got a real healthy flip, right? You can see it in the monitor. It's got a crazy healthy flip, so I really love it for that reason. It's like green, blue, brown base, green, blue. Oh, it's so pretty. My least favorite in this palette is probably going to be this one here, which is called Bronze Nebula. It's just real orangey based, and I don't think it goes with the rest of the palette. I also think that it is too close, honestly, to this one here. And I really like the way that this one performs better than I like the way this one performs. So there's that. Beautiful palette though. I'm not mad at any of the shades in this palette. And this gold one, even though it's probably not one that I would use all the time, it's more of a yellow than it is a gold. So I don't love a yellow gold, but I do love a yellow. I know that that doesn't make any sense, but it does to me. The next one we have, let's start with this one, which is the Sublime Mothership. I think this is number 2 for her. And I try to keep them all in the boxes. Yeah, this is number 2. I try and keep them all in the boxes so that I know what they're called, right? So this is number 2 for her, and the reason why I bought this palette was for this green, and I'm really excited to say that it is my favorite in the palette. I mean, it's just so pretty, and it's got a little bit of a like a green to purple like duochrominess to it. It is so pretty. My least favorite is this guy here, and I don't have the names of these shades anymore because this is one of the only palettes from her that I totally threw away the guide, you know, the shade guide, because it didn't suit me to keep it. Like, I like this shade, but it's more of a topper. It's definitely not impactful on its own. I want it to work by itself, and it just doesn't. So I would say that is my least favorite. It just doesn't have enough opacity, in my humble opinion, to work well on its own, and therefore that becomes inconsequential as far as I'm concerned in my makeup collection. The next one that I have as far as in order of motherships goes would be the Bronze Seduction palette. This is her number 5 palette. This is one of my newer Pat McGrath palettes, though. I just picked it up, I think, last year. My favorite in this palette is probably this one, and it looks like that. Again, just really duochromy. It's got a green to gold. I really like a green shadow, as you guys can see. And if you're not new here, you know that, because green is my favorite color. I think it shifts well, maybe not on my hand, but it does have a really healthy shift to it. It's just really pretty. My least favorite is probably this one. Oh, so this one is called Astral Luna Gold. This one is called Guilty Pleasure, and I just don't love it. It's also kind of like a transparent base to it, a little bit of color to it, but like this is a good swatch, even a double swatch, and you're barely getting anything from that color. I just think I got a dud as it pertains to that shadow specifically. I love putting it in eye look. I felt like it got hard pan really easy. It just doesn't perform in the way that I think that it should for a $125 eyeshadow palette. Next one would be Mothership Midnight Sun. This is number 6. This also is rather new to me. I picked it up in, I think, 2023. The packaging on this one is breaking, which is kind of infuriating because I do keep them in their boxes. As you guys can see right here, it's breaking away. But I'm going to try and hold on to it as long as I can. This palette is just so pretty. So pretty. So my favorite shade in this is honestly the reason why I bought it, which is this one here. This one is called Blitz Violet Orchid, and I mean, look at how just pretty that is. That is so pretty. It's like periwinkle on crack. It is so pretty. I love it in every single eye look I put it in. It was so beautiful. My least favorite is this one, which again is just, you know, shade preference. This is Jubilee. I think that it's pretty, but again, it's one of those yellow golds, not yellow yellows. And I didn't love working with it. Also really grippy, as opposed to some of her other like special shades. It gets everywhere without there being any kind of like, I mean, it's not super impactful, right? And with it getting everywhere, it's super, this one is super impactful. It's super flaky. I know it's gonna get everywhere, and I'm okay with it because I love what it does in an eye look. This one just doesn't do enough for me to have it cause as many problems as it does in an eye look. Not that it causes a lot of problems. I'm happy to have it in my collection, don't get me wrong. It's just not my favorite one to use because there's just no impact to it, and it's more trouble than it's worth. And the next one would be this one here, which is the Mothership 9 Utopian Dream. This one is one of the only Pat McGrath labs besides this one and Sublime, the one with the green shade. This one is one of the only Pat McGrath labs that Pat McGrath palettes that when it launched, I was like, oh yes, I will be getting that. I mean, this is a beautiful eyeshadow palette. That said, my favorite, can you guess, is this one here. It is the shade Astral Amethyst Moon. It is a little transparency in the base, but it is so pretty. Like the impact of this one, it's like nothing, nothing, nothing. Bam, look at me. I am shiny. It is so pretty. I love it so dang much and want to wear it on my face every day. That said, this one is also so pretty. I just think that there is a ton of prettiness in this palette. I had a hard time picking my least favorite in this palette. I think that my least favorite in this palette is a matte, and it's this one. Like, this is probably the matte that I really just feel doesn't really belong in this palette. It's kind of coral. It's a really bright coral, whereas the rest of this is really kind of leaning pinky purple. I think that we would have had a better time with a purple in this palette. This one's name is Shockwave, and I think it's because it's like a fluorescent coral, right? It's a hot red. And it doesn't go in this palette. I would much rather have had a purple in this palette as a matte versus that one. And the last one that I have to talk about is this one, and this is the Pat McGrath Labs Moonlit Seduction. I think this is also fairly new to my collection, my Pat McGrath collection. This one is the more like cool tone palette from Pat McGrath. Really beautiful palette. Really beautiful palette. My favorite shade is going to be this one here, which is called VR Sextasy. Like, I mean, with a name like that, you better be amazing. And it just truly is. It's like the better version of this shade here. So like she upped her ante, but this one like flips green, and this one actually flips kind of like a blue shade. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And then my least favorite in this is probably this one here, this copper. I had a hard time with this one as well because I just think that all of these shades are beautiful, and this gold is truly a beautiful gold. Even though it is a gold, it's kind of more of a white gold, so I really didn't have a problem with that. All of these shadows perform really well. This is probably my favorite palette in my whole Pat McGrath collection, but this one would be my least favorite shade in that palette. And I think that you can see why, right? Like when we look at my favorite shades and my least favorite shades, like I have a, what do they call it? I have a pattern here. Like my least favorite shades are the more like boring of the shades that are in the palette. Not that they're bad, but that kind of reminds me of this. It's like this palette had different versions of palettes of the past, and maybe it did. Pat McGrath is good about that. But these are my favorite shades. These are my least favorite shades. And the one that's the most interesting of the least favorite shades, I think, is this one from a shimmer perspective, this one from a matte perspective, but like literally that didn't go in the palette, right? It was just kind of like it would have went in a different palette, I feel like, but it just didn't go in that palette. So it was my least favorite in that palette. But let me know what your thoughts are on the palettes that you have in your collection from Pat McGrath. I would love to know your thoughts on my favorite and least favorite shades in the palettes that I have. And we got to see the swatches together. Favorites, least favorites. I know that I swatched them really weird, but you guys, I just can't with this hand. It hurts so bad. That said, I would be interested to hear your thoughts on my favorite and my least favorite shades in my Pat McGrath collection, and hear your thoughts on your favorite shades in your Pat McGrath collection. So what palettes do you have? What are your favorite shades in those palettes? Please let a girl know. Hit me up down in the comment section. And with that said, thank you so very much for being here today. I hope that you and yours are well. I hope that you are all safe and healthy and getting along as best that you can. I hope that you are all loving each other, being kind humans, and living your best life. And until next time, bye friends.